Just a few more seconds. Our staff is checking if we are live on all platforms. Okay, we are live, so let's begin. So good evening, Captain Hensen, and good afternoon, Hercules.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
So let me start saying thank you once again, Captain Hensen, for this opportunity. It is an honor for us here at Curso to have you virtually with us tonight for you, sir. Captain Hensen, just before moving on, I would like to ask you for your permission to say a few words in Portuguese to our audience. Is that okay for you?
Okay for me, yeah.
Ok, thank you very much. Bom, boa tarde a todos. Sejam todos muito bem-vindos a essa nossa entrevista com o Captain Hensen, autor do livro Tug Use, que está na nossa 4ª edição. Eu lembro a todos vocês que essa entrevista será 100% conduzida em inglês, sem tradução simultânea, e em respeito ao Captain Hensen, eu não vou me prolongar muito aqui nas palavras em português. Então, sem mais delongas, vou passar a palavra para o Hércules, que é o sócio fundador do Curso H e prático nos portos do Espírito Santo. Vai lá, H, está contigo.
Okay, obrigado, Lucas. Good evening, Captain Hensen. Welcome, everybody. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here again. I'll start with a brief resume of your curriculum. Just a few words, a very zipped version of it. Okay, Captain Hensen graduated in 1957, holds a deep sea master certificate for ships all sizes, had a great career at sea, spent about 14 years in various companies, got his pilot license in 1964 in Port of Rotterdam, worked as a pilot for about 23 years, worked also with the training of pilots and tug captains in simulators. After he retired, he continued his work as a maritime consultant, and especially regarding harbor tugs. He wrote several articles and also books, the most famous one being Tug Use in Port, published first time in 1997, now in its 4th edition, 2021. Well, Captain Hensen, you are, I'll start by saying that you're a very famous person in Brazil among pilots and pilot candidates. I would say at least like 2/3 of all pilots in the country, they studied your book, they read it more than once, more than twice. I read it at least 10 times, maybe. When I studied for my pilot exam in 2008. So I spent like 2 years reading your book over and over. And most of your students are very familiar with your writing, your personality through your book. And I'm sure they will be delighted by having you speak to us here today. Okay, so shall I start with a few questions we prepared for you?
Yes, may I say a few words before we start?
Yes, please.
It's also a pleasure for me to meet you all in Brazil. Brazil, a beautiful country. I've only been once there. And you have so many ports, and each port with its own characteristics, which makes the work of a pilot very interesting. To be able to carry out your work as a pilot in a safe and efficient way, suitable tugs are indispensable, as is the knowledge about tugs. I hope this meeting will be of some help with respect to that.
Okay, Captain, thank you. Well, I'll start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your experience as a pilot. And since our audience either is preparing themselves to become pilots or they're already pilots. So what can you tell you about your experience during those 23 years, right?
Yeah, it's about 20 years. A pilot has a great job. You come on so many ships and you see so many captains. The nicest of the job is the maneuvering in fair weather, with wind, with current, with a lot of maneuvering space or when margins are small. Like a conductor of an orchestra, you are playing with the ship's maneuvering devices, the current, the wind forces, and with the assisting tugs, all to bring a ship safely alongside and safely back to sea. Maneuvering is all mathematics. It's all about forces. The problem is piloted during dense fog. That can still be very difficult. And the last negative point I found for the pilot is climbing the ladder, which can be 9 meters high.
Well, thank you, Captain.
Yeah.
And during this time you worked as a pilot, did you get to know the tug's masters, the tug's captains really well? Did you get to know them in person, maybe sharing a coffee sometime? Or it was just a voice over the radio? You didn't have any close relationship? How was this relationship with you, the pilots in the Netherlands, and the tug's captains?
In my time, I'm speaking about my time, it has all changed during the years. We knew the tug masters, we knew them. We knew them by name, we even knew them by nickname. One was called the Lord, very famous tug master in Rotterdam. We knew how they worked. Also, the tug masters knew the pilots. And we met each other in the wheelhouse when one of the tugs had to take care of the boarding or debarking of a pilot. When there had been some troubles, we discussed the matter in order to learn from each other or to avoid similar problems in the future. So now and then, when there were meetings between tug masters and pilots, it was a system that worked very well.
Interesting. May I ask a question, Hercules?
Yes, please.
So, Captain, I know that it was a great answer, but I'm not a pilot, right? But I'm sometimes concerned about the maneuver by itself. But did you feel more comfortable when you get to know only by the voice that the tug master is a good one? So did you feel more safe on those occasions?
No, that's a good point, yes. And that was a good point of the system we had that time. When you have a pilot you can rely on, you know yourself how to handle. When you have a pilot, when you have a tug master that is nervous or has not so much experience, then you will be very careful when handling your ship. So you act according to the experience of the pilot, of the tug master, I mean.
Yes, from just adding to the answer here, from my short experience, I see that like in small pilotage districts, the tug masters and the pilots, they really know each other well. They're in close contact. But as the pilotage district gets big, you have more tugs coming in and out. You have more people working as pilots and also as tug captains, and then it gets a little difficult to be in close contact. And it requires a little bit of planning, so we can arrange like regular meetings to discuss issues that would maybe in other times they were discussed at the table and more regularly than it is nowadays. All right, so let's jump to the next one. Let's keep talking about the pilotage system in the Netherlands. Can you tell us a little bit about this? How does a person become a pilot there?
Yeah, let me start when I started as a pilot. When I applied as a harbor pilot of the Port of Rotterdam, I should have a master's certificate. I should have sailed 2 years as a captain or 4 years as a chief mate. And then you had to pass a psychological test. And when the test was okay, as several did not pass a test, you could start the training. This took about a month, only a month, learning all the rules and the regulations in the port and making about 100 trips. And then the examination, and when the examination was okay, then you became a pilot. Now the system has changed totally. And may I have that PDF slide?
Yes, just a moment. Can you read it?
Yeah. So here you see how you become a pilot in the Netherlands now. As I said, it has changed during the years. at least you need now certificates as chief mate all ships. This is about the same as before. You need to have a diploma University of Applied Science, BRM and MRM certificate, Marcom A certificate, and selected applicants have to pass also a psychological test, a maneuvering test, and a medical test. And when they, depending on the results of these tests, applicants may be allowed to start the training for pilot. And this training takes a long time. It's about 30 to 40 months. A lot of theory, a lot of practice maneuvering, and this written there, he or she. We have also several female pilots. So when she or he has passed the examination successfully, he or she becomes a pilot, and he or she is then also Master of Science, so a university degree. And when I go on, when becoming a pilot, they become also a partner in the pilot's company. It is a private company now. Before it was all state, or it belonged to the municipality of the Port of Rotterdam. So now they go on pensions about at the age of 60 years. And then they have a rather good, but a very good pension. So that's the system nowadays.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And is the pilot?
I finished first. This system we have since 1988, because then all the state pilots and pilots belonging to the Port of Rotterdam came together, and there's now only one pilot system, that is the private system I discussed it before. So as I said, all pilots are partnered in a pilotage company, and there is no specialization anymore between sea pilots and harbor pilots. One pilot brings a ship from sea to the berth, or from the berth to sea. The only specialization we have now is for certain areas, and areas more inland, and for deep draft vessels that have to pass the deep draft channel on the North Sea to the Port of Rotterdam or to the Port of Amsterdam. And they have a special training, and they work with two pilots on these big ships. So, and we work often with helicopters, and there's a helicopter station near the pilot office here in the Port of Rotterdam. So that's the system now.
Perfect.
Yeah, and in many ways the system is quite similar to the one we have in Brazil, with some important difference as well. Captain Hensen, how about during that period of apprenticeship, when you are joining senior, more experienced pilots, and you were learning the job, hands-on job? During that period of time, do you have to go on board the tugs and to follow the tug masters during a certain number of maneuvers? I think you said this apprenticeship takes from 14 to 15 months, right?
Yes. Yes. The part of the training is on board of the tugs. That's only one day, and in my view, that is not enough. And the apprentice pilots have to report afterwards. What they also do is they go to a towing company to learn how to handle a large transport, such as large pontoons. That's also a special day for them. And that's all what they do on the tugs. The active pilots, they have a regular meeting with the tug masters to learn from each other. There's a special group of pilots that arrange that every time. Yes.
So you think if if on the training program you take off that part of being inside the tug while learning to be a maritime pilot, if you take it off, the system, you think it's like a bad decision, right? You think this is it should be on the program for training the pilots, the trainee pilots to become a maritime pilot, right?
You mean it's good to have these apprentice pilots on board of the Tug for the.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very important. And my experience is that still many pilots have still not enough knowledge of the capability of the tugs and also the limitations of the tugs. And they only learn when they are on board of these tugs. And then they talk with the tug masters and then they learn a lot. So, and therefore, in my view, only one day is not enough.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, I share with this view. In fact, here in Brazil, the apprenticeship program usually includes some time on board tugboats. There's a certain number of maneuvers for every, depending on the pilotage district. But I think it's an important part of the training. As I said, I mean, you only really understand how difficult it could be on the point of view of the tug's captain once you're there and you spend some time and get to see different situations, different kind of environmental conditions and winds and swell. Oh. And I think it's an important part of the training as well. Yeah. Captain Hensen, in your book, you go through a number of different tug types. You cover them in great detail, and I've noticed from the second to the third edition, you added many new tug types. I think there's one or two for the fourth edition, I'm not sure. But for the second to the third, there were quite a few tugboats added. And do you have any preferred tug type? Your number one or not really?
I do have, and you said there's so many tug types more, and you are right about that. You see these new tugs coming, but you see all these new tugs disappearing, because then some naval architect has a new idea and they are building that tug, and this does not perform for the day-to-day ship handling. And I can mention several tugs, but when you go to the fourth edition, also the third edition, you see many tugs, and I only built one or two of these tugs and no more. There's no market for it. And when you're asking me, what do you find the best tug? Let me say one thing. Better have a not so good tug with a good tug master than a super tug with a not so good tug master. Because a good tug master can do a lot with a not so good tug. And we have many super tugs, and they are more and more becoming better and better. But you need also a very well experienced tug master. And that's also an important point. But let us assume that we have all well experienced tug masters. What tug type would I prefer? I would prefer a tractor tug with azimuth propulsion forward, or the void tug. They have also the propulsion forward. And there's a new type that's also more or less a tractor tug. There's a tug of Damen, that's what they call RST, reverse stern drive tug 2513. I come on later. And why these tugs? When you look at the accidents that happened, and then you see many accidents happen near the bow of a ship. That is due to the interaction effects that create a turning moment on the tug and that creates suction forces. And the tug type that can overcome these forces are the tractor tugs, because they have the propulsion forward and they can move away. And we have a tug with a propulsion aft, they push their stern against the ship, against the hull, and they easily come under the bow. And then the other tug I mentioned, in contrary to the usual tractor tug, the RSD tug has a high bow and a high stern. So in case of working with the stern in the direction of incoming waves, for example, the stern tug, this tug will not be hampered by incoming waves coming on the deck. And that's one negative point of the tractor tug. But all this I've written in the book Tug Use and Port, so much more in detail. Okay.
Okay. I agree. It's interesting. Your preferred tug type. Once you read your book, we realize it is the tractor tug, especially the Voice Schneider.
I would say the same thing,
Yes.
Voice Schneider.
That's the impression as a reader we have from your book. And also sometimes I thought I was betting on the rotor tug. You see, I
Yeah,
thought you just
yeah,
tell me about the rotor tug. But yes, please.
Yeah, in one way or another, a rotor tug is the same as a tractor tug.
Yes.
And instead of that large keg aft, they have a propeller aft. So there is not so much difference, but indeed they are working very good. They are maneuvering perfectly, but they are not so cheap, they are very expensive. But I must say, in the beginning, there were not so many rotor tugs, but when you now come in, for instance, in Australia, Port Hedland, it are all rotor tugs, and they are coming more and more in several ports. So they work very well. But it's not so much difference between a rotor tug and a tractor tug. So I could have mentioned that, but I speak more in general terms as a tractor tug.
Yes, and it's interesting. In Brazil, the conventional tugs, they are like going away. So there's still a lot of conventional tugs in service, but mainly we have reverse tractors and ASDs.
Yeah.
I think I've seen only one tractor tug in my life as a pilot here, and it was in my district for like a year or two, and then it disappeared, and I've never seen it again. I don't know if this is a tendency in South America or in Brazil, but we don't see tractor tugs around here. And the rotor tug, I was curious about how different it is to maneuver. I think there's a gain in terms of reliability, because you have a third propeller, but also comes into place the training. I think that third propeller must add a degree of difficulty for the tug master to handle it, and maybe that could become a problem in the hands of a not very skilled tug master.
You were right. The training for a rotor tug is very important, and yes, and that's one negative point. I mean, tug master has only two hands, and then he has also to handle the third propeller. And when in stress situations, it may cause some conflicts. So, but yeah, we have a training simulator here in Rotterdam, and the tugs belong to the company Tug or Rotor Tug, and they have their own simulator in Rotterdam. There they train the rotor tug captains. So it's an important issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the book, Tug Use and Port. What made you decide to write the book, and when did you decide to start doing it?
Yeah, that's I started writing about tugs when I saw during my time as a pilot that there is so little known about the capabilities and limitations of the various tug types. At that time, there were only two tug types in the port of Rotterdam.
You were still a pilot when you started writing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had only single and twin screw conventional tugs and void tugs. The void tugs are nearly gone now, but at that time there were only the conventional and the void tugs. And the general idea was that the bullet pool, the power of the tug, was the most important criterion. I found that there was also a lot different in the capabilities when assisting ships when they have headway. Rotterdam has a port with a river is going through the port with current, and then the conventional tugs did it much better than a void tug in the current situation. So, and this was the reason that I started to write in the magazine of the pilots about the tugs, about the difference between the tugs. And the tug masters found it so interesting. They tore out the pages of the magazine of the pilots because we were writing about their tugs. So, and also during simulation training course for pilots, and I started also a simulator studies for new port projects. We found it also necessary that the right characteristics should be handled for the simulation training courses and port projects. So there were all reasons to write something about the capabilities of tugs, of the different tugs. I discussed this with the Port Authority of Rotterdam, and they agreed with the idea, and they gave me all the assistance needed, including some financial support, in order to be able to collect as much as possible information from all over the world and to write a book. So, and then I went to the Nautical Institute in London, and at that time Julian Parker was there, the secretary, and he found it also a perfect idea. So the Nautical Institute became the publisher of the first 2 issues of the book. And after the second edition, I went to another publisher. Yes.
Interesting.
Right. And from one edition to another, did you receive and did you use feedback from pilots from all over the world? I mean, did you have friends writing to you and making observations, maybe suggesting modifications or suggesting things to be added? How is the exchange of information with the pilots after the first edition came out?
No, it was not so much information from the pilots. What I wanted to know is how many power they need in each port to handle large ships. So we had in Rotterdam a system for the larger vessels and the smaller ones. But how is it in Hong Kong, and how is it in Tokyo, and how much do they need for a large tanker to handle? So it was mainly that what I collected. And you can find it back in the graphs in the book. There are 3 graphs in the book with the tug power used to handle container vessels, to handle bulk carriers, or to handle tankers. And it's also that these pages which describes the power needed to handle a ship, that they find the most important pages of the book. So many, yeah. So that was the most important issue at that time, and yes, then I worked it out. Each edition became bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it is already, I believe, 300 pages.
Yeah.
More and more information. Yeah.
And what are the most important changes from the 3rd to the 4th edition so far?
From the 3rd.
Yeah,
the
from 3rd to the 4th. Yeah, the 3rd.
The 4th.
Yes, okay. Yeah, the updating of the 3rd edition became necessary because the publisher, the ABR company in the UK, went bankrupt. So I had to look for a new publisher. I found one here in the Netherlands, and at the same time, the books were nearly sold out. So there should come a new edition. What I did is first I updated the rules and the regulations as the IMO regulation, because it changes so quickly. Also the IMO regulations. So I checked that all and I updated it. And apart from updating the rules and the regulation, there were some new items. That is a decision support system on board tugs. They are talking more and more about the tug master should have more and more information. Whether it is necessary, I doubt sometime, but it doesn't matter. That's one. There are now more and more fully electric tugs coming. I think there are at the moment about 2 or 3 working, but there are coming more. So I added a paragraph about tug operations in swell, and that's an issue of importance for port designers. I worked on a project in Gulf of Guinea where a lot of swell is, and yeah, how can you handle these ships and how can tugs work in swell? So I've added that. Then I have added, how do you stop a ship by tugs? How much power do you need? And there were some new escort tug types. There's a new carousel tug coming on the market that's now built in Malaysia, but I don't know whether you know what a carousel tug is. A carousel tug has a ring around the wheelhouse, and the tow line is fixed to a winch on that ring, and a carousel tug cannot capsize, because when it got a list, it is lifted up again. It's a very nice system for conventional tugs. So we hope it will work there. There are at the moment 1 or 2 working in the south of Holland. So there's a new one coming in Malaysia and maybe more. And the last thing I was working on was assisting Navy ship, the difficult ships, so the submarines and the aircraft carriers. And we did a lot of work in the UK with the chief pilot of the UK Navy, and Serco is there, the towing company. And he helped me, and we did a lot of work. And then they sent it to the Navy there in the UK, but they got not any approval that it could be published. So I had to start from scratch again. So, but the Dutch Navy helped me, and there was some manager there in the Panama Canal. He had some information. So with all that information, I could write the chapter 2. So that is included in the book also. But it seems that it is very secret information to handle a submarine in a port. I don't understand that. No. Yes, so that's are the main issues. There are some little changes, but these are the main issues that have been added and that have been changed.
Okay,
So,
and could you please tell the audience where to find the book, the paper version of it? I know there is an electronic, how to say, Lucas?
ebook.
Yeah, that's an ebook.
Yeah.
And if you could please tell the people how to buy the ebook and how to buy the paper book, because many people they would like to have the paper book.
Yeah, I'm not so in favor of an ebook, but that's maybe my age, but I like to have something in my hands. So, but we are, it's now published as an ebook too, so there's no problem at all. No. So
I think we can have the link on the description of YouTube later on, so we can have it with you, Captain, or with Henk, so we can like put the link, and then the audience can visit that link and then purchase the book, right?
Oh,
I
yeah,
have a
the
question. So do you still learn about like the Tug subject when you are doing your research from one edition to the other? Do you still learn a lot about Tugs, or it's kind of more getting up to date about regulations and I don't know.
Can you repeat that question?
Sorry, the end of the question was stupid. So do you still learn about the subject when you are doing the research from changing from one edition to the other?
You are learning, but I often work together with a naval architect, and he is always working on Tug. So, and you are talking a lot, you are reading a lot, and when it's not to write a book like that, Tug Use import, you can't do it on your own. You need many more people with all different knowledge, and that knowledge you bring together in a book. It's not only your own knowledge. You need a lot of other people to write such a book. So that's what you all, and I learned from what I always do is also to read accident investigation report. When an accident happens somewhere in the UK or in never mind where, then you can read, learn a lot how the accident happened and what should have done. And that I include also in the book.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. Shall we start with some questions from our audience?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we have selected a few questions, Captain. First one we have here. The person says, with the growing number of ships fitted with auxiliary maneuvering devices such as thrusters or special propulsion types like azimuth propellers, do you think that tugs, that harbor tugs as we know today, they might eventually walk towards extinction? How far we are from this?
Yes, I don't believe so. May change a lot on tugs, on the equipment, the tug control, propulsion system. They changed a lot in the fuel system, but tugs will be necessary for many years to come. And maneuvering devices of ship may improve and increase, but there are several factors that will make tugs indispensable also in the future. And I will mention a number of such situations. So the improved maneuvering devices will have a certain limit with respect to the forces of current and wind that can be compensated. When current and wind forces are higher than that limit, see for instance the very large container vessels of 400 meters long, with containers 10 high on deck, they have such a large windage, you can't make your maneuvering device so strong, but they are never strong enough to keep the ship up in wind force 7 or 8. Often is 7 the limit. So then you still need tugs to handle these big ships. And the improved maneuvering device may not work properly. Then you need tugs again. The ship may have a total blackout. Tugs are again welcome. And escorting of tankers and gas carriers will take place in many years to come. And the ships that will be equipped with improved maneuvering devices are mainly container ships, cruise vessels, ferries, and maybe car carriers. But tankers, bulk carriers, LNG carriers are ships that are not so much dependent on a time schedule and will most probably not be equipped with very modern and costly maneuvering devices and will keep using tugs. And then ships have to go to the dockyard, so now and then. Also, then tugs are needed. So there are many reasons why we see tugs in the near future too.
Yes, and I could add one more reason. I mean, the cost of an accident as compared to the cost of the tug is so huge. It's just like the cost of the pilot. And in terms of safety, what the tugs and pilots, they add to the maneuver.
Yes.
I mean, you with one accident, you pay for like 50 years of tug use,
Yeah.
isn't it? So I agree. I think it's never good.
You are right. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Yes. One more question here regarding towing methods. In your book, you talk a lot about direct towing method and indirect towing method. In the direct method, the hydrodynamic forces, they are hydrants, nor an aid. So basically the tug uses propulsion force to tighten the tow line. On the other hand, the indirect towing method, the tug uses the hydrodynamic forces in favor of the maneuver, and the tug propulsion and steering system is used to place the tug in the best possible angle to use those hydrodynamic forces. You talk a lot about indirect towing method and direct towing method. You use those words when tugs are operating astern of the assisted ship. But can you use also that terminology for tugs operating forward at the ship's bow?
That's an interesting question. Both terms, direct towing method and indirect towing method, they came when that escorting started. And it applies to a stern tug. Such maneuvers could be carried out by a suitable bow tug too. But has it any effect? It should be realized that such maneuvers at the bow have only little effect, because the tug forward as giving steering assistance to a ship having headway, then the hydrodynamic forces are also working at the bow of the ship, and they counteract that effect of the tug. When the tug is operating in the same way as a sternway tug, then they are much more effective, because then the hydrodynamic forces working on the bow of the ship support the turning. So that's the reason. Yeah, that's also the reason why you have a rudder aft and not forward, because and therefore it has no much sense to do these maneuvers at the bow of a ship. And there has been a lot of, when that escorting started after the accident with Exxon Valdez in Alaska, they have done several tries with the tug forward, with the tug aft, and they have done a lot of simulation exercises, and the end result was that we take a tug at the stern and it works effective, provided you have a suitable tug, of course. I hope it is a bit clear in a few words.
Yes, I think it is. Let me get one more question here. Well, do you consider the use of escort tugs towing on a line aft on big ships transiting narrow areas such as Suez Canal or Panama Canal? Do you think it can reduce the chances of an accident due to unexpected strong winds?
Yeah, that accident is in Suez Canal is a very typical one, and you should first have seen that accident investigation report. I have not seen it yet; it's not yet ready. But I doubt whether an escort tug aft would give any assistance. Sometimes they say that tug aft can be used to decrease the speed. But when you decrease the speed, then you have to increase the drift angle. And when the tug aft would give steering assistance to starboard side, for instance, the wind is coming to starboard side, let us imagine, then is the drift angle decrease, but the drift is increasing, so it's also a bad maneuver. When the ship is, the tug is pulling to the leeward side, it may increase the drift angle, but it pulls the ship to the wrong side. So I don't see any reason, any good reason why to use an escort tug. I think an option would be to use a suitable tug forward and a suitable tug aft, both pulling in the wind direction, and a ship speed not more than 6 knots. I think that's the best solution, but you should try that out in a simulator, what you can do, and train the pilots and the tug master at the same time.
Okay,
Perfect.
perfect. Great answer. Captain Hensen, 3 more questions, if you agree.
Okay.
Can you remember any particularly difficult or especially challenging maneuver during your life as a pilot? Do you have any strong memory of a difficult moment you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I will tell you. As a pilot, you try, of course, to avoid difficult situations. But sometimes situations may develop you are not prepared for. So once I had the last container ship in, there was a container ship of the United States line. There was a lot of wind, but it was not blowing extremely hard. I had ordered 2 tugs. However, when coming in the channel towards the harbor basin, where the berth was, the wind increased. So I ordered 2 tugs more. When arriving at the berth, it was blowing so hard that I hardly could hear what the captain was saying. But we managed to get 4 ropes ashore. But then the ship started drifting towards another ship lying on the other side of the basin. And the crew on deck could not heave on the lines anymore. In the meantime, 2 tugs more had been ordered and had arrived already. And it was about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. We started to blow the whistle to warn people at that other ship. They could be killed. And the captain said, "Oh, pilot, this is an act of God. What can we do?" But the 6 tugs managed to keep the ship just free from that moored vessel at the other side. At the same time, I maneuvered the ship slowly backwards so that it came in the lee of another container ship lying there. And there we could wait till the wind would decrease, and then we moored the ship safely alongside. It was a very stressful event. So that I still remember after many years.
Yes, I think after more than 20 years, you could keep telling stories. You probably remember at least a handful of scary moments. And another interesting question here. This is probably come from someone who's still studying to become a pilot. This person is concerned. I mean, he would like to know how you describe your feeling when you were about to perform your very first maneuver unassisted and without a senior pilot on your side. Those who are studying to become a pilot, I think everybody imagines they pick that moment in their heads. Well, when I'm alone by myself, how's it going to be? I've had this experience as an aircraft pilot, which is a bit worse because your skin is on the game, not just the vehicle, not just the aircraft. But I mean, do you remember? It's been so long time ago. But if you have those memories, could you share with us?
Yeah, I do remember, and I don't know how the system is in Brazil, but as a beginning pilot here in Rotterdam, you start on small vessels. And that looks easy, but it isn't, because with the small vessel, you go also to small places. And with the small vessels, when they are in ballast, they are very difficult to handle. And
especially with powerful tugs, huh?
Yeah, and a tug is too expensive.
Yes.
And the only thing left is what they call the poor man's tug. You know what it is?
The anchor.
The anchor, yes. So, and then you are not yet so familiar in the port. You are new and not so familiar with the birds and effect of currents. So the first time is rather difficult. However, I don't remember that he had any problems with it. And we could always ask older pals what they would do in that situation. But it was a time you learned much, and you learned very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Let me get the last question here. It's about the use of gob ropes. We have still have considerable number of conventional tugs operating here in Brazil. In your book, it covers in a great deal of detail the improvements you can make on this type of tug to increase its performance. And concerning the use of gob ropes when operating broadside at the stern of the assisted ship, would you say the system is restricted to operations at slow speeds, or you can still use gob rope systems at higher speeds? Does it eliminate the risk of gearting or not?
Gob rope is, should be handled with care. It can help a tug master, but when it is used in the wrong way, then it can cause problems. But I will first explain what kind of gob ropes there are. So I may have that slide where you see the after part of the tugs.
Yeah. So you want me to share the screen with the gob rope or the other one with 4 ships?
No, the gob rope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a second, please. This one?
Yes, that's right. Yes. You see, there are 2 systems. When you see tug A, that's only a fixed length of gob rope line. That's from there, and goes to the boiler. Yes, correct. That's a fixed length. When you go to C, tug C, then the gob rope goes to a winch. So you can pull the shackle here, the shackle there at the top, yes, you can pull the shackle all the way down. Yes, so when we take tug A, then that tug can do a maneuver and bring the tug broadside behind the ship. That's B, the system B. So the capability of the tug increases because it can now steer from starboard and it can steer to port. So when we take tug C, that can do the same. That is shown in at number 2, D2. But when it pulls that gob rope all the way down, then it can also brake at the ship speed. That's number 3, D, yes. So that are the 2 systems. In some countries, amongst others in Germany, there's a gob rope winch is compulsory. And that's more or less a good system. So, and now we go to, if possible, to the next slide.
Okay. Share it again. This one?
Yes, that one. That's right, yes. So you can use a tug in different ways when they're using the gob rope. And I said with the gob rope system, the capabilities of a conventional tug is increased. So And at the A, you see a tug with a GoPro forward, and then you see the water flowing towards the tug. And the same, more or less, you see in B, but then the tug is aft, and there's also the engine, and they can use also the engine. Now, and in C is where the tug is from position 1, can maneuver to position 4 to break the ship's speed. Now, and the same is in D. That's more or less the same, yes, but this tug number 1 is now at the lee side, but I want to have the tug at the wind side, so it maneuvers behind the ship and goes to position 3. Now, all these maneuvers are very risky, whether A, whether B, whether C or D. Speed should be very low. A maximum speed of 3 knots is recommended. Some tugs will have a very good stability and a very high freeboard. They can maybe do a little bit more, but always be very careful. In the situation B, be careful with the engine, because the engine, when you use that, the water flow will increase and the tug will capsize. Many accidents have happened in that way. And I was called one time to Curacao, and then the situation with sea happened. And then that maneuver was done with a too high speed and the tug capsized. So, as I said, many accidents happened, always because the speed is too high. And why is that? You see in all these situations, in A and B, and you see it also in D, the tow line is at the right angles to the tug. So there's a very large capsizing moment. Oh. Now, and then when you go, I don't know if you can show that.
The video?
Video, yes.
Yeah, I can show. Let me load it. Can you see it?
Yeah, okay.
Vídeo do cisne branco.
Yeah. What you see here, and that's very high speed, and then you see the tug capsizing. This tug did not have a GoPro, but what you see is the speed is too high for some reason. So the current or the speed of the ship, they are happy they could get off the tug. And the same accident we had also with a old sailing ship here in the Netherlands. And we have also video of that. So you should be very, very careful. And that's what I want to say.
Do you want me to play it again?
Oh, no, it's all right for me now, yes.
Okay.
No. Yes.
Well,
go ahead.
Yes, we are coming to 1 hour of interview. I would really like to thank Captain Hensen for being here with us this evening. I'm sure that our audience really enjoyed the company here and to hear from you. And also, I'd like to thank the audience. Lucas, would you like to say any final words here on behalf of
Just say thank you again, Captain, for this opportunity. Just as Hercules said, it's an honor for us to have you here. And I hope to see you next time, soon.
Okay. Yeah, I've only told you a little about Tug Use, only a very little part of the book Tug Use Import. But I will say, please study that book and learn from it. It will help you when you are piloting ships. It will help you to handle that in a safe way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you
Thank you very much, Captain.
Okay.
Have a great night.